Hello everyone, my name is Nathan, I'm Eternus 6 and I make educational content about Deadlock, and today I'm going to be giving you a pretty detailed guide on build crafting. So I'll give a quick overview of the item system at first, and then I'll teach you the 7 requirements that a build has to meet to be good. I'll also teach you how to improve at knowing which kind of items are good for which heroes, as well as point out some common mistakes that people make while build crafting. And as a result, you'll hopefully be able to judge builds better, as well as make better builds yourself, so that we as a community can hopefully avoid incidents such as Gun, Mina, and Dorman, and that kind of stuff. So whether you're a returning player, someone with already a couple hundred hours played, or a complete beginner, this guide will have something for you. And of course, as always, if you have any questions, feel free to leave a comment down below. I'll try to answer. So like I said, I'm going to start off with the basics, but if you want to skip ahead past those, that's of course completely fine. I'll put the timestamps on the screen. And at the end of the video, we're going to be making a Mina build together from scratch to show my entire thought process when making a build. So the items are divided into 3 categories. We have the weapon items, which will make your gun better. We have the vitality items, which will give you survivability. And we have the spirit items, which will make your abilities better. And then within each category, the items are separated by price tier. So we have the 800 items up here. And then all the next tiers are multiples of 800. So these are going to be double, these are going to be double, and these are going to be double. Some items build into other items. So for example, we have Headshot Booster over here, which builds into Headhunter. And that means that while Headhunter is usually 3200, if you already have Headshot Booster purchased, Headhunter will now be 2400. And that works with a bunch of items. For example, Extended Magazine, which builds into Titanic Mag, and Escalating Resilience. So everyone starts the game with 8 item slots, and you can fill these with any item. The tier doesn't matter, everything just takes up 1 slot. So a tier 4 item takes up 1 slot, a tier 1 item also takes up 1 slot. You can buy as many items from any category as you want, so you can fill your entire inventory up with a bunch of green items if you want to. And then there's these 4 extra slots that you can unlock by destroying enemy objectives during the game. So when you hover over them, you can see this one you unlock when you destroy 3 enemy guardians, and the 4th one you unlock when you destroy a set of base guardians. So most items give you a combination of base stats and some kind of unique passive. For example, Enduring Speed gives you movement speed, out of combat regen, but it also has a passive that gives you slow resist. But some items only give you base stats. For example, extra health just gives you some bonus health, and Mystic Regeneration over here only gives you the passive and doesn't give you any additional base stats. Then there's also unique active items, for example Cold Front, and these will take up, as you can see, a regular item slot, but also one of these 4 active item slots. And these active items will give you basically just another unique ability that any hero can buy. So for example, Cold Front gives you a small expanding ice blast around you that slows people, deals some damage. And Warpstone gives you a small teleport that gives you bullet resist afterwards for some seconds. And then over here on the bottom left, there's also these investment bonuses. And these will give you extra base stats for investing into a category. So investing into weapon items will give you bonus weapon damage. Investing into vitality items will give you a percentage increase in your base health, and investing into spirit items will just give you extra spirit power. So because of these trees, that means that even if an item, for example, doesn't give you any spirit power, you can still get spirit power by just reaching a next investment bonus. So for example, if I buy compressed cooldown and imbue it on something, I just got 11 spirit from reaching 2 investment bonuses, even though this item doesn't give any spirit on itself. Now, as you may have noticed already, these stat bonuses are not linear. So what that means is per soul invested, you get a lot more value at certain points. So the most valuable point to hit for each category is the first one, which is 800 souls. So that's just buying a singular item in that category. That's going to give you the biggest bang for your buck, basically. And if you take a look at these graphs I've put on the screen right now, you can see that the investments kind of fall off post 9.6k souls invested. So that would be, for example, a 6.4k item and 2 1600 items, right? That's 9.6k. After this point, you'll get a lot less value per soul spent. That's basically all you need to know. So what this means is that for most heroes, it is generally worth it to invest into each category just a little bit at least, because you'll get a lot of value for just reaching the first few checkpoints. So even if you're playing a hero that really likes to invest into spirit, buying a few weapon items just to reach these early bonuses can be really good. So as an example, buying Restorative Shot, even though I'm a spirit hero, will give me 6% weapon damage, plus the 7% from the investment bonus, which means I got 13% weapon damage for just 800 souls, which is just really valuable for basically any hero. Now, while these bonuses are pretty important, I wouldn't worry too much about them. I've seen a lot of people make the mistake of kind of obsessing over these, making builds that reach the 9.6k investment in every tree, even though it doesn't really make sense on the hero. Most heroes have 1 or 2 categories that they have really good synergy with, and then a 3rd category that they don't really synergize well with. So what you should do is just really focus on buying items that your hero does well with, and then changing the order in which you buy those items to better match these spirit investments. So Lash, for example, is a hero that really just likes investing into the spirit category because he has great synergy with it. And he also has amazing synergy with some of the green items, the vitality items. For example, Warpstone, Majestic Leap, Stamina Mastery. But he has some of the lowest base gun DPS in the game, as well as a burst gun. And burst guns, if you didn't know, benefit less from fire rate, because fire rate only decreases the time between bursts and not the time between the individual bullets in a burst. So that means you can never really scale up your gun. So building gun on Lash is just really bad. So as a result, it's completely normal to just have your entire inventory filled with green and purple items on Lash. And that's completely fine. Because even though there's a few items here, for example, Mystic Shot, that kind of seem fine on Lash, they're just not really worth the slots over the spirit and vitality items that he has amazing synergy with. And what you could do is just buy Restorative Shot, Headshot Booster, Monster Rounds or something in lane, and just sell those later on for slots. It's completely normal to just buy some cheap items early game and sell those. For example, Healing Rite is a very common item for sustain, and you usually just sell it after the laning phase to open up a slot for items that you actually need. But make sure you don't overdo this. You don't really want to, fill up all your slots with a bunch of early game green items and then have to end up selling all of these. Usually you'll just buy like 2 or maybe 3 items that you sell later on. Alright, so now that we have the basics down, let's talk about the 7 build requirements I was talking about. But I do have one recommendation before we move on, which is to take your time and read all of the items in the shop. It's going to be a bit overwhelming, but I promise you it's worth it because it's so important to just know what every item does in the game. So what makes for a good build? A good build meets several requirements, and I'll elaborate on some of these in a bit. So the first requirement is basically just a good ability point order. An ability point order that prioritizes abilities worth prioritizing and is efficient with points. Second requirement is that it amplifies or works with the strengths of the hero. It minimizes the weaknesses of the hero. It doesn't require too many slots or require selling a bunch of items to open up slots during the game. It doesn't take too long to come online or require too many expensive items, which is kind of the same thing, right? It can be adapted to fit every individual game with situational items, and it keeps the investment bonuses in mind. And if your build meets all of these requirements, you've got a solid build. So I'll talk a bit more about ability point order because it's not really talked about a lot when people talk about builds, even though it's actually really important. So think about which 1 or 2 abilities you want your build to focus on. Most games you will not really be maxing out 3 abilities until very late into the game. It's like 35k souls that you can max your 3rd ability, so that's very late into the game. And as of right now, you do not get enough skill points to max out all 4 of your abilities at any point of the game. So some heroes can be pretty flexible with what ability to max first or second, like for example Viscus, who as far as I know can focus on maxing pretty much any of his abilities and run a solid build with it, while other heroes like Pocket only have 1 or 2 viable skill point orders. Some heroes really like to max out one ability as soon as possible because it's by far their strongest ability, and the tier 3 upgrade is a big power spike. For example, Great Talent's Charged Shot and Seven's Power Surge, which are both massive power spikes, and those are really their main abilities. While Pocket on the other hand likes to put 2 points into Flying Cloak and Satchel, because the first 2 upgrades on those are really big early game power spikes, and then they'll go for either the tier 3 on Barrage or Affliction, depending on your playstyle or the game. So usually I would just look at some high level player's skill point order on the hero and copy it. Maybe change around a few points depending on your preference, but in general be really cautious with spending too many ability points in random places. I see a lot of players, even high level players, make this mistake because it's really easy to just go, oh that's a nice upgrade and it's only 1 or 2 AP. But be aware that every AP you put into one ability can significantly delay one of your big power spikes that you get from upgrading another ability later on. For example, if your hero wants to get one ability to tier 3 quickly, you can rush that ability and get it maxed at 7.5k souls with 8 ability points. Spending another point on a different ability's tier 1 upgrade before that point will delay that to 8.4k, which might not be a big deal, and it might be worth it. But then spending another AP or 2 will further delay that tier 3 power spike to 9.4 or even 10.6k, which is several minutes later into the game, so it can really add up. So be aware of this and spend your ability points wisely. So the next step when making a build is you're going to want to select the items that amplify and work with the strengths of your hero, as well as help minimize their weaknesses. So how can you determine what items are good for a hero? You can usually kind of tell what kind of items a hero likes based on their abilities, ability spirit scalings, and their base stats. You can find base stats up here, boon scaling down here, and it's good to know that you gain boons throughout the game by getting more souls. It's basically just levels. And you can find ability spirit scalings by hovering over the abilities and holding Alt. So most abilities have spirit damage scaling, but some abilities also gain, for example, duration or range based on the amount of spirit you have. So based on these things, you're gonna select items that give your hero base stats that they like, and passive or active effects that synergize with their kit. Now this also really just comes with experience, knowing which items are made for which type of hero, and it can also really depend on the current item meta. So maybe your hero has really good synergy with, I don't know, Mystic Slow or Escalating Exposure, which are both items that 7 synergizes really well with, but because those items are just not as strong, they're not really worth it over other items anyways. And that also works the other way around. So maybe your hero doesn't have a particularly good synergy with Spirit Shielding, but the item is just so good in the current meta that you might as well buy it on pretty much any hero anyways. So I'll give you some quick examples of heroes that like a certain thing. So for example, Haze really likes Fire Rate, because her passive ability Fixation gives her flat damage for each stack of fixation she has on the enemy, and each shot gives her 1 stack. So getting stacks faster on the enemy will give her a lot more damage. So you want to build Fire Rate, and buying weapon damage doesn't really do a lot on her, because her base weapon DPS is actually really low, because of her Fixation passive, that's most of her damage. And weapon damage items will increase that base weapon damage, ignoring the bonus weapon damage that she gets from Fixation. Then Calico and Billy really like melee items, because Leaping Slash and Bash Down count as light melees, which means that those abilities can proc really strong item effects such as Spirit Snatch and Life Strike without the risk of getting parried. Then 7 really likes stacking a ton of raw spirit power, because all of his abilities have solid spirit scalings. His main and strongest ability, Power Surge, has pretty low base damage, which means that you need to buy a lot of spirit to make it more effective. And on top of this, his Power Surge duration, static charge cast range, and even his movement speed all scale with spirit as well. So let's talk about strengths and weaknesses. Like before, you just take a look at your abilities and base stats and think about the hero's playstyle. For example, Geist is really immobile, but to effectively make use of her life drain, she needs to be able to somewhat stick to people. And her ult has a really short cast range as well, which means that picking up something like Kinetic Dash or Warp Stone for some extra mobility can be really valuable. Both of those items also give her other stats she likes, like Fire Rate, flat increase in ammo, and bullet resist. So by buying these items, we're helping her negate her weaknesses and help elevate her strengths. Another example is 7. When playing him, you'll likely notice you die really quickly to somewhat unavoidable burst damage abilities. For example, a pocket jumping you with Majestic Leap will just throw a full combo at you and you'll die. Or Lash will catch you with his ult in an open area, and you can't really survive him throwing you into his team and slamming onto you. 7 just doesn't really have any built-in survivability or mobility abilities, aside from his movement speed of course. So items like Spirit Shielding, Counterspell, or Ethereal Shift can really help him survive those kind of situations. And buying items like Spirit Resilience are kind of less effective on 7 compared to some other heroes, because he has a relatively low base HP pool. And instead, these abilities that help you avoid damage completely are better on him. And just to compare, on the other hand, we have Geist again, who has a pretty high base HP. So buying Resist on her is relatively more effective, right? And she also has built-in sustain with her Life Drain and Soul Exchange, which further make Resists effective on her. And on top of that, she also does damage to herself by casting her abilities, and that damage is spirit damage, which means that buying Spirit Resist actually reduces that damage that she does to herself. So that's another example of an item that really helps her both negate her weaknesses and elevate her strengths. Alright, so for the last part of this video, let's make a Mina build together. So it's going to be pretty detailed, but it's going to be worth it, and you're going to be able to apply all of these concepts to any hero you might play. I'll also keep, of course, the build requirements that I explained earlier in mind. Alright, so let's create a new build, Nathan's Mina, and let's go over to the public tab, because the first step is going to be to determine your skill point order. So let's take a look at some high-level players in here. So I know, of course, Ido is a really good player. So he does 2 points into Love Bite, 2 points into the Rake, then maxes the Dash, maxes the ult, and then this is kind of irrelevant because the game's over at that point. And Saya, also a pretty good player. Again, 2 points Love Bite, 2 points Rake, then maxes the ult, maxes the Love Bite, and doesn't max the Dash until last. That could be something. So this focuses more on the ult, I guess. Then we got the Zergy build over here. Again, 2 points into 3, 2 points into the 1. So that does seem to be the correct way to do it. 2 points Dash, and then maxes the Rake first. Okay, so we have 3 different builds already. And that makes sense. New hero, we don't really know what's good yet. Probably the best way to go about it is to just try all 3 of these ability point orders, see what we like most, see what's best. Then Piggy does the same thing as Zergy, kind of 2 points into all 3 first abilities and then maxes the Rake. Alright, so if you haven't read the abilities yet, I would really recommend doing so. So I already kind of know what these abilities do, so we're just gonna put the points in. So we're gonna start with Love Bites, we're gonna put a point in that. Then we're gonna take the Rake, we're gonna put the second point into Love Bites, we'll get the ult at this point. Then we're gonna put 2 points into the Rake, and I think what I like most is maxing the Dash. So that's what we're gonna do, and then I think I'm gonna max the ult after, and then finish off with, let's see, I think Love Bites and then Rake. So I think this is what Ido was doing. I like that most, so let's do that. Okay, so now that we have the ability point order set up, let's determine what kind of items Mina probably likes to build. So first let's look at the base stats. And the first thing I'm noticing is that she has really, really low base weapon DPS and really low base HP. And I think her boon scaling is also really, really low. So how do I know this, that it's low? Well, you just compare it to some other heroes. So I don't know, let's select Geist. Well, she has way more base weapon DPS, way more HP, and way more base health scaling. So what this immediately tells me is that I shouldn't be building gun on this hero, and I shouldn't be building tank on this hero. Which makes sense, her abilities are kind of an assassin playstyle, right? If you look at them. She has her dash to kind of go in and out of fights, and she wants to quickly shoot someone a few times, burst them down. That makes sense. So what probably is best is to invest a lot into the spirit category. She has really good scalings on her 1, for example. The heal per kill, which means that if I buy improved spirit, the heal per kill already goes from 30 to 47, so that's really good. And the cast range of her dashes also scale with spirit. And of course her base weapon DPS is that low because her entire gimmick is her passive, her love bites, which makes her deal spirit damage on all of her abilities and bullets. So as you can see, when I shoot, I do 6 spirit damage, 7 weapon damage, and as I get some more points into that, the spirit is probably going to be pulling up ahead. The bonus damage on this also has really good spirit scaling, and her ult has decent spirit scaling as well. So yeah, we're going to be wanting to build spirit items, and while we have terrible base HP, so we don't really benefit from the investment bonus on vitality, there's still plenty of items in the vitality category for any hero that are good. So for example, I could buy Stamina Mastery, which is just going to make me more slippery, which is also a form of survivability, of course. So now that we know what kind of items Mina probably likes, we're going to go through all of the items, yes, all of them, and we're going to select all of the items that we think might be worth buying. So I'm going to make some space here, and this is also why it's really important that you know what every item does, because of course you don't want to miss out on any item that might be really good on your hero and you just don't know what the item does. So we're just going to go through every category. Don't worry about having way too many items in here. We're going to filter them later. So we're going to start off with close quarters, gives melee resist. We don't care about that because we're really squishy. We're not going to be fist fighting people. We also don't care about weapon damage, like we said. We have the worst weapon damage in the game. We're not gonna buy that. Extended mag, well, it does give ammo, and we do have a really small magazine, but it gives percentage ammo. So what we could get instead is kinetic dash, which is gonna give us 8 ammo. So that's way more than extended mag will ever give us. Then headshot booster actually gives 40 bonus health, which is really nice because we're really squishy. So that sounds pretty good. And it also gives us some extra poke in lane. High velocity rounds, well, this item is kind of just bad, so it's not really worth it ever on any hero unless you go express shot or armor piercing rounds, so we're not gonna go that. Monster rounds could be decent. It builds into cultist, and I'll explain later on why I think that might be worth it. Rapid rounds gives us fire rate, which could be pretty good on this hero because we want to proc our love bites faster, right? And fire rate's also gonna make us do more of that spirit damage per bullet. Then Ruster Shot doesn't sound amazing, but it's kind of a broken item in general, so could be worth it as well. Active Reload gives us percentage max ammo, and Bullet Lifesteal, we don't care about that. Then Backstabber is just a really good item. It's gonna give us some footstep, sound distance reduction as well, so could be decent if we're trying to sneak up on people. Fleet Foot, I don't think this is amazing. It kind of has the same passive as Surge of Power as well. And I think Surge of Fire would be better on this hero because it's spirit investment. Then Intensifying Magazine gives us percentage ammo, weapon damage, we don't care. Now Kinetic Dash actually sounds really, really good because it gives us stamina. We only have 2 stamina bars, even though we want to be really mobile, right? And it's also going to give us, like I said, temporary ammo and fire rate. So that sounds like an amazing item actually. Long range, nah, we don't care about weapon damage. Melee charge, nope, we're not a melee hero. Mystic Shot could be decent, gives us spirit power, always nice. Opening rounds also gives us spirit power, but gives us weapon damage, so then I think Mystic Shot would just be better. Slowing bullets, I don't think this item is that good, so we're just gonna skip it. Spirit Shredder bullets could be decent, because it's gonna give us some spirit resist reduction. Split Shot, kind of a meme item, nope. Swift Striker, fire rate could be decent, but I think if we want fire rate, we're just gonna go Burst Fire or Cultist Sacrifice, and we already have Kinetic Dash, and I think that might just be enough. Then Titanic Mag, nope, we don't want percent ammo, even though it's a lot, this item is just not that good. Weakening Headshot is gonna give us bonus health, which is nice, but Bullet Resist, Shred, we don't really care about that. Then Alk Fire, we don't really have anything to keep people in the Alk Fire zone, so that's useless. Berserker, we're not gonna be tanking a lot of damage to stack this up. Then Blood Tribute, 40 health per second, drain is just way too much for this hero. We're too squishy for that. Burst Fire, like I said, could be worth it. And Cultist, I actually think this might be a really good item on this hero, because it's gonna give us fire rate, bonus health, and ability range, and I think those are all pretty good stats for his hero. And because I think we will be building superior cooldown and maybe transcendent cooldown, this item could be worth it, because that's going to help with the uptime on this item. And Escalating Resilience gives us percentage ammo again, so we don't really care about that. And it gives bullet resist, which we also don't really care about. Express Shot, kind of a specific item for alternative fire heroes, so Yamato and Viscous, so not really meant for us. Then Headhunter, while we might pick up Headshot Booster, this item is probably not worth it, because it gives us a percentage heal per headshot, but because our health pool is actually really small, right? That heal is probably not going to be a lot. Then Heroic Aura gives us bullet resist, nope, we don't care. Hollow Point gives us weapon damage and bullet resist shred, nope. Hunter's Aura, again bullet resist shred. Point Blank gives us melee resist and weapon damage, nope. Sharpshooter, same thing. Spirit Rend. Now this builds from Spirit Shredder bullets, and it does also give us 100 bonus health, so this could be pretty good late game. Tesla bullets is probably not like awful, but I don't really see a reason to build it on this hero, so we're just gonna skip it. Then Toxic bullets could be pretty good because we will likely also be building some fire rate, so we're gonna be proccing this pretty quickly on people, and we're also gonna be building a lot of spirit, right? And this item skills with spirit. Now weighted shots, nope, this is more of a frontliner item, right? It gives weapon damage and spirit resist, debuff resist, so not meant for us. And then all of these items, I'm not going to go over them, but I don't think any of these, except for maybe crippling headshot and spiritual overflow, are worth it. But I don't think I'll ever be wanting to invest this many souls into the weapon category. So we've got all of these weapon items selected. Let's move on to the vitality category. So first off, we got extra health. Bonus health is really good on this hero, so that could be really good, and it builds into Fortitude and Colossus. Now Colossus we're probably not going to pick up, right? That's a frontliner tank item. Fortitude could be good. We'll talk about it later. Then extra regen is just not really that good on most heroes. A better sustain option usually is healing rate. And healing rate makes a lot more sense as well on this hero because we have a small health pool and it's gonna heal us for a flat 300 health. So that's basically all of her HP at the start of the game. And it also scales with spirit, as you can see. Then extra stamina sounds really good because it builds into kinetic dash, as you can see, upgrades to arcane surge, kinetic dash, and stamina mastery. Kinetic dash we're probably gonna be building, and it also builds into stamina mastery. So I think this is a really good item. Melee lifesteal, nope, we're not going to be meleeing people. Rebuttal is kind of too situational in my opinion. It can be good against like a Viscous, but I never really find myself picking up this item on any hero unless you'd be playing like a melee hero. Sprint boots could be pretty good if we want to roam around the map. Trophy collector is a terrible item, don't buy it. Juggernaut is a terrible item except for on some kind of frontline heroes. So also don't buy that on this hero. And then enduring speed could be pretty good. So let's include it. Battle Vest gives us weapon damage and bullet resist, we don't care. Bullet lifesteal, we don't care about bullet lifesteal. Debuff reducer gives us bonus health, which is nice. Debuff resist, not amazing because we don't really want to be tanking a lot of debuffs. However, slowing hex, the item, actually counters our dashes really hard, so we might be forced to buy debuff remover in some games. So I'll include it anyways. Enchanter's Emblem, Spirit Resist we don't really care about, and I don't think this item is actually that good on its hero, because it is really easy to fall below that 65% health threshold, and you'll be missing out on these buffs. Guardian Ward is a support item, so we don't care. Healbane could be pretty good, gives us spirit power, a flat heal on hero kills, and healing reduction of course, that sounds pretty good. Healing booster, we don't care about that, we're not going to be building healing tempo, and we're not going to be building extra regen, which builds into healing booster. Reactive barrier is kind of just a situational item for any hero, so could be decent in some games. Then Restorative Locket actually seems insane on this hero. Even though it gives Spirit Resist, which we don't really care about, it gives us the active, which is going to restore 2 stamina points and heal ourselves, scaling with Spirit Power, based on the amount of abilities that have been cast near you. You're constantly going to be within 30 meters of people because she's a pretty short range hero, right? So it's going to be pretty easy to stack this up, and this heal is going to be massive for you. So I think this item is probably going to be must buy in most games. Return Fire is kind of a frontliner item. We don't really care about that. Then while we will be doing a lot of spirit damage, I don't think Spirit Lifesteal is actually that good on this hero because we don't have a large health pool. And we won't be building a lot of resist. So you're not going to be really out healing damage in a fight. So this is probably not that good. Spirit Shielding is an amazing item on pretty much any hero. And it's going to help us tank a lot more damage. So I think this is really good. Now Weapon Shielding is kind of just a worse version of Spirit Shielding. So we're just going to skip out on that. Then Bullet Resilience and Spirit Resilience we don't really care about. We're not going to be tanking a bunch of damage. Counterspell sounds amazing. It's going to give us 100 flat health. And it's going to give us Spirit Power. And the passive, like I explained with 7 earlier, is going to allow you to quote-unquote tank a lot of abilities, so that sounds really good. Debuff Remover is really just a counter item for slowing hacks that people might buy against us, so we'll probably have to include it. Also gives 100 bonus health, so it's not terrible. Fortitude does give a bunch of bonus health, but I don't think this item is actually going to be worth it. I just don't think this item is that good in general. The heal just takes too long to kick in, and like I explained with Enchanter's Emblem, it's really easy to fall below 75% health, even when you have this 400 bonus health. So you'll probably not really benefit from the movement speed either during fights. And instead, I think Spirit Shielding just basically does the same. It's pretty much going to give you the same amount of tankiness, but cheaper. Fury Trend's not meant for us. Bullet Lifesteal, we don't care. Healing Nova, support item, we don't care. Life Strike, melee item, we don't care. Majestic Leap is kind of an engaging item. It's kind of a niche item for Ultimate Warden and Lash and Pocket. Heroes that want to be able to engage from a long distance or that need height for their abilities. But yeah, we don't care about that. Metal Skin, nope, we're not going to be face tanking a bunch of damage. Rescue Beam is a support item. Spirit Resilience we already talked about. Stamina Mastery sounds really good because we want to be nimble, we want to be quick. Trophy Collector is just a meme item, so we're going to skip it. Veilwalker actually sounds really good because it gives 175 bonus health and 10 spirit power, which is, yeah, is even more than Counterspell. And it's going to give us stealth when we walk through veils. That sounds really good. We can sneak up on people. It's going to give us a heal as well. Then Warpstone, in theory, sounds pretty good because it gives us a blink, so it's going to help us be more nimble. But I think Stamina Mastery would kind of do that better for us, and we don't care about this bullet resist either, so I don't think this is worth it. Then Cheat Death is kind of a meme item, but I don't actually think it would be terrible in this hero in some situations. So for example, late game, if you get grabbed by a Unclear, you'll probably die. But this item can help prevent that, and you could get to safety with the dashes that you have. So might actually be decent. Closest we talked about, that's frontline item, we don't care. Fine Barrier is a support item. Diviner Scavenger gives ability duration, and that actually doesn't work on your ult, the ability duration, so we don't benefit from that. It does give us a really big barrier, so if we are going for an ult late game, maybe it's worth it. We'll see later. Healing Tempo is a support item. Infuser, nope, we don't care about lifesteal. Inhibitor is probably not terrible, but I don't think it's worth it over any of the other tier 4s so far. So we're not going to be building this. Juggernaut I talked about. Leech, same thing. We don't care about lifesteal. Phantom Strike could be like a cook, I guess. If you're doing a fun build, I don't think it'll be optimal to do this. With Stamina Mastery and our dashes, we should have enough tools to get close to people. Plated Armor, nope, we're not going to be tanking people. Siphon Bullets actually sound really good. Even though the base stats are terrible, the passive is so good. And because we have a full automatic gun and we're going to be building some fire rate, we're probably going to be able to proc this off cooldown. And it's going to give us 55 flat HP every time we proc this on people. So that's going to make us relatively very tanky, right? So this could be pretty good. Spellbreaker gives us Spirit Resist, Debuff Resist, which is not really stats we care about. But in some games, if we're playing against like Lash, Pocket, Paradox, when they have a lot of big Spirit Burst abilities, this might just save us late game if we have a ton of souls to spend, so it could be decent. Unstoppable is kind of an item that you would buy if you want to commit to something. So for example, if you want to commit to using your 7 ult, you'll pop this. So it could work maybe for your ult if you're doing an ult build, but it's probably not really worth it. Vampires, Lifesteal, nope. And finally, Witchmail is kind of a frontline item for if you're going to be tanking a lot of spirit damage from people. That's not our goal, so we're not going to be buying this. Alright, so this is what we got so far. Let's go over all the spirit items. So extra charge is already grayed out because we don't have any charged abilities. So extra spirit we already talked about. Sounds amazing. It's going to give us more heal, more damage. It's going to give our bullets more damage as well, right? So Mystic Burst, let's see, do we have any abilities that do more than 80 damage so we can proc it? Well, by default, our Rake doesn't. When we have 2 points in it, it does. So that's kind of late into the laning phase. And our 3 actually reaches that 80 threshold pretty early into the game already when you have 2 points in it. So that's probably a good item. And I think Tank Buster, which Mystic Burst builds into, is going to be insane on this hero as well. Then Mystic Expansion, in general, is kind of just a bad item. Same for Greater Expansion. These items are just not really worth it generally. Unfortunately, knowing this is just kind of a matter of talking to a lot of people and knowing a lot about builds. Mystic Regeneration is going to give us health regen when we hit people with spirit damage. So this might sound insane on this hero because we do spirit damage with our bullets. But when you try it out, so let's half our health, you'll see it actually doesn't proc on our base bullets. It only starts to proc when we proc the love bites. So that's just coded in, that's just specific. And that also means that debuffs like Suppressor, Healbane, Mystic Slow over here, all of those also don't proc on your bullets. And you need to actually hit them with your Rake, your ult, or your Love Bites proc to proc these effects. That's good to know. Now, I do know that Radiant Regeneration does actually work on your regular bullets for some reason. I don't know why that is or if it's a bug, but I still think it won't be worth it. Same reason that Spirit Lifesteal isn't worth it, because you won't really be sustaining through fights. You're just like either alive or dead on this hero. So you don't really care about mid-fight healing. Rusted Barrel is just a terrible item on any hero, so I don't care about that. Then Spirit Strike and Spirit Snatch, which it builds into, are melee items. I don't think that's worth it on this hero. Arcane Surge gives us ability range and duration. Now, we don't care about duration on this hero because quite literally, I think nothing actually works with duration on this hero. And instead, if we want stamina, I think Kinetic Dash and Stamina Mastery are way better. Bullet resist shredder, we don't care about bullet resist, shred, and we don't care about melee resist, so nope. Cold front actually sounds really good because we're gonna be pretty close to people, and this is just gonna give us another ability basically. It's just gonna give us a flat 125 that scales with spirit. Then compressed cooldown sounds amazing. We're an ability caster, and for example, our survivability is this dash. So having that off cooldown is really valuable. Duration, we talked about, we don't care about. Improved spirit, probably pretty good. We care about spirit. Mystic Slow is just not a great item. It builds into Lightning Scroll, which could be like funny with your ult, but I don't think that's going to be worth it. Then Mystic Vuln could be decent. This item in general is not that amazing. Same goes for Escalating Exposure, which is also just not that good. And also, it doesn't work on your basic attacks. You need to actually hit people with your ability or proc your Love Bite to get the stacks on people, so that's gonna take ages to stack. And even then, the amp is not really that good. So I will be including Mystic Vuln for now, but I think we'll be scrapping it later on. Then Quicksilver Reload sounds pretty good. We could put it on our Rake. We don't use that at the start of our combo, I think. We're gonna be shooting people first, and then we can use it to reload our gun, get some fire rate, get some extra bonus damage on the Rake as well. That sounds really good. Slowing Hex is kind of a utility item. I don't think we're gonna be having item slots for this available, so I don't think we're gonna be picking this up. Spirit Sap builds into Silence Wave. This item on itself is kind of just bad, but Silence Wave is pretty good, so I'll just include Silence Wave. Then Suppressor, even though again it doesn't work on your basic bullets, this item is kind of just insane. It's also going to give us bonus health, so it could just be good in some games where we're playing against a lot of gun heroes. Decay, this item is kind of just bad. I don't think we have the slots for this. Disarming Hex, same thing. Greater Expansion, I explained earlier. Knockdown is also, like Slowing Hex, more of a utility option. We might have to pick it up some games if none of our teammates buy Knockdown against the 7 Vindicta and Great Talon in the enemy team. But yeah, I'm not going to include it in the build. RR we talked about. Rapid Recharge we can't even buy. Spirit Snatch talked about. Spirit Cooldown sounds amazing. Duration we don't care about. Surge of Power could be pretty good. That's going to give us imbued ability power on one specific ability. I think we could put this on our Rake. It's going to give us the Fleetfoot passive as well, where you get full movement speed when shooting still. And it's going to give us some bonus movement speed on top of that and some fire rate. So those are all stats we like. Then Tank Buster I already mentioned. I think this is going to be really good on this hero because it's going to give us some bonus health, which is nice. But most importantly, I think we have several ways of proccing the passive on people. So let's say we have Improved Spirit, Superior Cooldown, Mystic Burst, Cold Front. That's already going to bring us past that 165 threshold on Love Bites and Rake. So that already basically covers us, which means that at this point it would already be great to pick up Tank Buster. And then Torment Pulse is more of a melee kind of item where you're going to be sticking close to people. And while you are a close hero, I think you're going to be kind of weaving in and out of fights. So I don't think you're constantly going to be close to people. So it's probably not going to be great value to actually buy this item. Alright, so we're almost there. Arctic Blast is an upgrade for Cold Front, and I think Cold Front is really good, so we'll probably pick this up at some point late game. Boundless is an upgrade from Extra Spirit and Improved Spirits, so we might buy either this or Surge of Power, which also builds from Extra Spirit, or you might buy both. We'll see. Curse is kind of just a full utility item. Could be good some games if you're doing terrible and still want to be useful, but I'm not going to include it. Then Echo Shard is kind of a meme item usually, except for on some heroes like Vindicta. But yeah, I don't think we have the slots for this. And cooldown should cover all of our cooldown needs really, so yeah. EE, we talked about it already. Then Ethereal Shift sounds amazing because it's a lot of spirit investment, which we like. And it of course gives us the active, which makes us completely untargetable and invincible for 4 seconds. Focus Lens is just a terrible item on anyone, so we're gonna skip that. Lightning Scroll could be funny if you're doing an ult build. It's probably not amazing. Magic Carpet is a meme item. There's just basically no shot that this item is ever going to be better than E-Shift, so no way we're going to be buying that. Mercurial Magnum, while we do have really, really low base bullet damage, this item probably won't give us a lot of damage, so we would have to test that and see if it's worth it. Not going to do that in this video because it'll take too long, but it is an upgrade for Quicksilver, so if we do end up buying this, then upgrading this late game is probably just worth it, because why not? Then Mystic Reverb is an item that's kind of meant for heroes that have one ability that they do a lot of Spirit Burst with. So for example, Lash with his Slam or his Flog, or Great Talon with his Arrow. But in general, this item seems to be a bit underwhelming at the moment, and I don't think it's worth it on this hero. Refresher is really meant for heroes that want to refresh their ult, so Dynamo comes to mind. Maybe like a 7 late game if they're doing an ult build. But yeah, not meant for us really, so we're gonna skip that. Scourge, same thing as Torment Pulse really, where it's kind of a short range spirit item. It's gonna give us like stinky aura around us. Yeah, it's pretty short range and we're probably gonna be like weaving in and out like I said, so it's probably not a great item. And Spirit Burn, we're probably going to be able to proc this pretty easily. It's only 500 damage. I think we'll reach that pretty easily, especially with Tank Buster. So this could be good late game if we want some healing reduction against people. Transcendent cooldown is generally not an amazing item. Now we do have Cold Front / Arctic Blast and Ethereal Shift, and maybe we'll build Surge of Power as well. And since we're going to be building superior cooldown anyways, it's probably also just a late game upgrade we might pick up at some point. And finally, Vortex Web, which is kind of a utility support item like Slowing Hex, so we're not going to bother with that. Alright, so over here we have all of these items we just selected, and now we're going to be filtering them, and we're going to be selecting the ones we think are best, and we're going to be putting these into the core and situational items. There might be some items that we think might just not be worth it, so we'll take them out altogether. So the basic setup I like to use for my builds is to have a laning section over here. Items that will build in lane pretty much every single game. We got some optional laning items. These are usually for sustain. So for example, Resto Shot, Healing Right. Then we got the core items, which will really define our build. And again, we'll buy these pretty much every game. We got the mid-game situational items over here. So during the mid-game, we might pick up something like Reactive Barrier or Healbane. So we'll put those kind of items in here. And then finally, we'll put anything else, any more expensive items that we'll buy late game, into the situational late game section. For example, Spellbreaker, which is a situational item that you'd buy late game if you have a ton of souls to spend against a specific team comp. So let's just start with the laning items. So we're going to move these in. So out of these, which ones do I think is best? I think Headshot Booster actually sounds really good because it's going to give us some flat bonus health to survive, and it's going to give us some extra laning poke. So I'll move that into the core items. Monster Rounds could be pretty good if we want to buy Cultist, and I think Cultist is actually going to be better than Burst Fire. And since we don't really want to invest as much into the gun category, I will probably just never buy Burst Fire. So as a result, I also won't really want to build Rapid Rounds, so I'll just take those out. And instead, I'll move in Monster Rounds to the optional and Cultist into the mid-game situational. And maybe I'll find out that Cultist feels really good in-game, and I'll put it into the core items. And because of that, I might want to build monster rounds every game. And because I don't want to have too much weapon investment early, I might take out Headshot Booster. So that's really the thought process I go through when making builds. Resto Shot is just a great item, so we'll put it into the optional sustain category for whenever we do need some more sustain. Then we're going to move on to the 800 vitality items. So which one of these do I think is best? Well, I think Stamina Mastery we're probably going to build every game, because I think Kinetic Dash and Superior Stamina or Stamina Mastery are insane on this hero because they just give us stuff that we like. We want to be nimble, we want to have fire rate, we want to have ammo. So I'll put that in. Then Healing Right is just basically just a really good situational item on any hero. So we'll put that in the optional items over here. Extra health could be really good in some games where we feel like we need that extra health to survive the laning phase. So I'll put it in situational as well. And now that we already have quite a bit of vitality options, I think this one, Sprint Boots, is the worst one. So I'll just take it out. And then as a result, I'll take out Enduring Speed as well, right? So let's move on to the Spirit items. I think Extra Spirit is going to be insane. Mystic Burst is going to be good as well because we already decided that Tank Buster is probably insane. So we can already move Tank Buster into the core items, right? And then we'll move Mystic Burst into the laning items as well. We're not going to worry about the order just yet. We'll do that later. Alright, so that was it for the 800 items. Let's move on to the tier 2 items. So which one out of these do I think is best? I think Kinetic Dash is just going to be crazy, so I'm going to put that in. And these ones all seem kind of good as well, but I'm not sure which one. So I think I would have to try them out in game to see what actually feels best and whether any of these are actually worth it. So what I'll do is I'll just move these into the situational category over here for now. Then for the Vitality tier 2s, these are all kind of just situational, right? But I do think these two are probably must-buys, so I'll just put them into the core items. Then for the tier 2 Spirit items, I think Cold Front is going to be really good. I think Compressed Cooldown is going to be must-buy because we want to buy Superior Cooldown at some point. I think that's also just a core item, which means Compressed Cooldown is probably also a core item. Cold Front as well. We'll probably move one of these two. Let's do this one over here for now. The laning phase only lasts until about 8k souls, so let's see how many souls this is. So yeah, that's about 8k when we consider also buying a healing item. Then looking at these remaining tier 2 items, I think Mystic Vuln is probably not really going to be worth it. We're not going to be upgrading it anyways. I think Improved Spirit is probably good at some point. And Quicksilver might also just be a luxury nice item, so I'll just put it in mid-game situational. I think this is an item I would have to try out a few games, see if it feels good, if I miss it when I don't buy it, and then I can decide to put it into the core items. So let's just quickly take a look at how we're doing with these slots so far. Let's assume we have to buy a Healing Right as well. So We're actually doing really good on slots so far. We don't need any flex slots until 10k, so that's like 11 minutes into the game. And if we do need a slot at this point, we could totally sell Headshot Booster for compressed cooldown. We have more than enough slots and we can still upgrade these as well. So we're definitely doing good slot-wise so far. All right, let's move on to the tier 3 items. So I think both of these are kind of just situational, right? Spirit Rend we might go if they're building a lot of Spirit Resist. Toxic Bullets we might go if we are late game playing against some healing characters with a lot of HP. So for example, a Geist or an Abrams or something. Then for the Vitality tier 3s, I think Stamina Mastery is pretty much going to be a must buy. That sounds like the best item out of these. Debuff Remover we already talked about. That's kind of a situational item for when we need to deal with a slowing hex, or just when they have a lot of debuffs that you're scared of, like a Furnace Burn or a Vindicta Stake. Then Counterspell and Veilwalker, these both sound really good. So Counterspell could be really good if you're playing against a lot of telegraphed spells. So for example, you can dodge a Pocket Ult with this, or you can dodge a Lash Slamming onto you with this. Veilwalker, I think this is kind of just a preference and playstyle item. So I think you just have to play a few games with this and see if it fits your playstyle. If it does, you could move it into your core items. I just noticed we have Suppressor in here. So we already do have quite a bit of tier 2 items. I don't think this is going to be worth it ever. So let's just move it out. We already selected 2 tier 3 items in the spirit category that I think are going to be must buys. Do we have room for more? Well, let's just see. We had the build up until this point. So at this point, we would have definitely sold all of these optional items over here. And Headshot Booster as well, of course. So at this point, 17k, that's like 15 minutes into the game. It's reasonable to assume we have at least one flex slot. So we do have a slot available for any of these items. Now we can do a bit of quick filtering again. And I think items like Backstabber, Spirit Shredder Bullets, and Mystic Shot are not going to be worth it over any of these other options. We're probably going to be covered damage-wise. So I think having the extra survivability from these kind of items is probably better. So we do not have a whole lot of slots available, and we do already have a silence built in as well. I could put this into the late game situational section for whenever you do have slots and a silence is really valuable and you need the shred as well. Could be decent. Surge of Power could be really good. I feel like you'd also have to just try this out in a game, see if it works. And finally, we got the tier 4 items to talk about. So out of these, I think Siphon Bullets actually sounds really good. So I will move it into the core items. I think that's going to be a great late game item to pick up. And then all of these other ones kind of just seem like situational picks. Then these 2 are upgrades. So you could just put them into the core items over here. Same goes for Transcendent cooldown. Then, oh, Scorch is not supposed to be in here. Whoops. Spirit Burn could be good late game situational, right? If they have a lot of healing, then this item gives 70% healing reduction, so that's good. Magnum is an upgrade if we buy Quicksilver, but it is in the situational section for now, so we'll move it into situational as well. And I think E-Shift sounds like an amazing item on this hero, so I will actually put it into the core items, because again, you're really squishy, so being able to completely avoid any and all damage or like crowd control that people are throwing at you for 4 seconds is just crazy to me. So that sounds amazing on this hero. All right, so I did a tiny bit of mining off screen. If you know, you know. So I put Veilwalker, Counterspell, and Debuff Remover into the mid-game situational because I think those are kind of mid-game items. You'd probably pick these up somewhere after Tank Buster or Stamina Mastery. Maybe before, depending on the game. So yeah, that just comes with experience, knowing roughly how a game goes when what happens. I've changed around the order a bit, but I'll talk about it in a second. And I've also put in the survivability utility section and the damage section over here for the late game situational items. So that's just a bit more convenient, I guess. So now let's talk a bit about the order of items. So let's actually start with the investment bonuses, see if those kind of line up. We're gonna get past these 800 marks first. So you could go Stamina before Locket, but I think probably Locket is going to be better. You could also reach that 800 with Healing Rite or extra health, of course. I think you'll be buying Healing Rite pretty often, so let's start with that. And then because that happens, maybe you'll buy Restorative Locket just a bit later. And you might go Cold Front and Burst first. So Burst, you need 80 damage, so you need 2 points into Love Bites for that to proc, which will happen at 2.6k souls. So you could also buy Burst at this point already. That might be better. You just have to try it out and see what works. So then you'd buy Resto Locket after and Kinetic Dash. And that would roughly be the end of the laning phase. Maybe you'll find out that buying Spirit Shielding feels a lot better than Kinetic Dash at this point. Or maybe you'll find out that buying Kinetic Dash at this point feels really good. So that just comes with playing a lot of games on a hero. You need to experiment and try some different orders, see what you like, see what works. So let's move on to these core items that we're going to be building after the laning phase, up until the end of the game pretty much. So we got Spirit Shielding, which maybe we'll find out some games is not that good and we could skip it. Same goes for Resto Locket, honestly. If they just don't really cast a lot of abilities, then you're not going to be stacking this quickly. And you might have to skip those. But I think because they're going to be good in like 90% of your games, I just put them in the core anyways. But maybe you'll swap it out for Reactive Barrier or Debuff Reducer or Healbane. Or maybe you'll find out that you really like building Cultist because you don't feel like you have enough fire rate with just Kinetic Dash. And you want the extra fire rate from Cultist. And then you can save the slot by skipping Spirit Shielding. That might just turn out to be really good. So up until this point, we're doing pretty nicely on the investments. If we buy Spirit Shielding, that doesn't really quite line up. But you know, it is what it is. We might sell Healing Red at this point, and then we're back at the investment. Don't worry too much about it, honestly. So I put Tank Buster at this point. I think actually you can already technically proc Tank Buster at this point. When you level up your hero, you also get Spirit, if you didn't know. As you can see, it's going up. So we're at 8.8k, so that's roughly this. So you could technically already buy Tank Buster at this point. You are able to proc it. As you can see, you get past the 165 mark. However, I think it'll be better to just buy Improved Spirits. Then this, you reach the next one, and then Spirit cooldown, you reach the next one again. For the out of combat regen that those items give, as well as the cooldown reduction, of course, which is amazing, because that's also going to give you more sustain with your Rake again. And I think you would also imbue compressed cooldown on your Rake, but you upgrade to superior cooldown red after, so it doesn't really matter. And then you have the choice to either, I guess, go Tank Buster, which would bring you to the 9.6k investment, so that would feel really good for damage. But maybe you want the mobility, or maybe you want Veilwalker or Counterspell or something. So you could buy any of those first as well. And again, if you run into slot issue at this point, you can sell Headshot Booster. So let's say we go Veilwalker, we'll buy Tank Buster, then we'll buy Stamina Mastery, which is going to bring us to 9.6k as well, which is just a coincidence, but that's really nice. And afterwards, I guess you would just go any of these that feel good at that point. Maybe you want Ethereal Shift first. That'll bring you up to the next bonus as well. Maybe you'd want Siphon first, because it allows you to start stacking it already early. You do need 3 flex slots at this point. I don't think that's a big deal, especially because you can just sell Spirit Shielding or Restorative Locket at this point, probably. So let's say you sell Spirit Shielding at this point because you have E-Shift to avoid the damage. And then at this point, we're very late into the game. The game has probably already ended, but you know, you have the upgrades here. That'll bring you to the end of the Spirit investment. But you might also, of course, just buy any of these in the meantime. Maybe they have a lot of tanky healing characters, so you want Toxic Bullets. Or maybe Spellbreaker happens to be really good, but I guess you already have E-Shift, so maybe that's just never worth it. So at this point, it really just comes to playing a lot of games on the hero, trying out the different things that you have in here, moving things in and out of the core items, depending on what ends up working, what ends up not working. What I would also definitely really do at this point, you can also do this before you start, of course, but compare to other builds, see what they do. So for example, this Ido build has Cultist in the core items. So apparently Ido thinks that Cultist is really good. I would definitely try it out, see if it actually is worth it. But you can see it kind of has the same items that I do. So it has Cold Front, Improved Spirit, Kinetic Dash in here. Mystic Shot and Enchanter's Emblem I left out, but maybe they're good. Zergi also has Mystic Shot. And Piggy does not have Mystic Shot. So apparently some people think that Mystic Shot is really good. Some people don't. But in general, you can really see that this build kind of just has the same items as we do, which is a good sign. There's a really big chance that while doing this, you picked up some items that you cannot find in any build. So maybe you thought that, let's see, Greater Expansion would be amazing on this hero, but you don't see it in any of the builds. Then ask yourself why that is, and if you're not sure, just ask around. Ask people why they don't have that item in their build. But yeah, I think we have a decent build here. Of course, it's not going to be perfect and it's not going to be finished because we haven't really played the hero yet. So that would be the next step, really. So yeah, I hope it was helpful for you to see my thought process when making builds. Hopefully you'll be able to apply this to better judge builds you find and be better at making your own builds. Have fun with build crafting. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed the video and learned something, please consider liking, subscribing. Really helps out my channel. I'm trying to reach 1k subs before the end of the year, so help me get there. And with all of that said, I'll see you guys in the next video. Love you. Bye bye.